Hey guys, okay, so the season has officially kicked off. This weekend, Saturday, the 26th of January, the last available weekend of January, everyone goes for this one, everyone wants this one, everyone wants to take the first event of the year on the calendar. So listen to this for a shopping list. This weekend we had the opening round of EWXC, we had the opening round of Africa Off-Road, the Corlini event up in the northwest, where they obviously mix up the cars, the bikes, the quads, the kids, everything. Very, very cool. We had the opening round of Trials SA as well. That was in Wild West, so that was locally. And up in Mpumalanga, and that's in Middelburg specifically, the guys from Farm Jam had their opening event, which they call Time Attack. Very much a sprint kind of race, but a lot of guys, because the season's starting so early, take their bikes up there, their quads, and they'll do one lap against the clock, turn the clickers, turn the screws, dial up the preload, whatever they have to do, then go out and do another attack. And that looks like they had really good numbers, just under 100 riders, obviously just from that catchment around Middelburg. Maybe some of the guys come down from Nelspruit, maybe a couple of guys go up from Pretoria. I felt like a weather girl there, the clouds moving in. But a lot going down this weekend. So, the guys did a really good job up at Farm Jam. Time Attack is becoming known as their first event of the year as well. It's very good, so the guys don't really have to travel too far. For the guys that did want to travel though, the EWXC round number 1, Gary Frank's running his very successful tour once again. Just over 300 riders. So for a first event, still in January, maybe just after payday, it was on the 26th, most guys get paid on the 25th, but January is always no one's got any money, I know Ireland. So, to get just over 300 riders, very, very cool. Return of the King as well, so let's announce Dwayne Klano, full fitness. He was coming back into fitness at the end of the year, just before Roof. Definitely had a little bit of fitness fade on the last day of Roof when he was in a challenging position for a podium, but let's forget about that. It's all positive going forward. Kept his seat with the Factory Brother Leader Tread KTM squad. Lines up with his TPI. I think he stayed on a 250 TPI for this year, and Hammer the Nail took another win. He's been known as the winningest rider on EWXC history. He even won the title last year before he had his injury problems. This year he's going to be pushed hard though. The pro riders are really coming on strong. Up in the low felts, it's normally himself and Barnett Erasmus. It was Erasmus actually that went on to take the low felt title, staying healthy the whole way through 2018, with Dwayne having to step out whilst he was in a championship lead. But this year at the EWXCs, Justin Flemmer on the Trax KTM, who got picked up by Trax KTM last year, pushed him real close and ran some good numbers. So I'm very excited to see the development that's happened in the last few years with Justin. One of those riders that just needed that little bit of help. He was always one-man band, him and his dad and his family and his sister looking after everything. And now this year, proper setup with Trax. They're really pushing hard and helping things out. So well done to the top 2 pros. There was a lot of riders lined up, showing off new equipment, moving up out of the ranks, and basically just turning up to get the first race done. A lot of off-road riders that I know and are good buddies with, they just turned up just wanting desperately to get some mileage behind the bars under the belt. A lot of the off-road guys were focusing on the GXCCs. That first event is only in a couple of weeks' time, the 16th of February. So everyone just wanted to get the first big banger out the way. So that was what went down this weekend. We'll review some of the results as we talk about some of the teams and some of the big news that also came out this weekend. So let's go a little bit further afield. So I talked about, I think, 4 events. So Africa Off-Roads, Trials SA, Time Attack, EWXC. There's also stuff happening a little bit further afield down in KZN, WFO, their opening round. Now there's a big catch of riders down there, and they also want their season opening dust off. So they probably flipped a coin, to be fair. The KZN guys and some of the Lesotho guys would have been torn whether to go and do an EWXC or a WFO. Most of the time, the guy stayed local, and it was Carl Flanagan, who looks like he's made the move up to Open. I saw he was entered into Open. He took the Open win ahead of William Slater, who's also another rider coming back from his injury woes in 2018, the king of the MP. But it looks like a 450 rather than a 250 underneath Carl Flanagan. That maybe hints at the fact that he's going to be lining up for the off-road championship on a big 450, and maybe just getting himself used to it, because the way that the WFO guys run their first events, on a couple of their events, are hare scramble style. So kind of GXCC mixed up with a little bit of not super tech enduro, but more challenging than flatland, flat out racing. Anyway, I'm waffling. It was Flanny who took the big win on the big dog on the 450 with Slayer, stays with Dynamic Express, I think is his team, and on the 300cc Husqvarna running Olin suspension now as well. He's been testing that throughout 2018 when he was fit and healthy. So that's also what went down a little bit further adrift. Just before the working and racing weekend though, there was some big news. Last week, Thursday night, Holeshot Husqvarna, who fielded a modest but a very strong team in 2018. It was their first crack of the whip, the first time of running a team, and some of the results that they walked away with were absolutely huge. You know, you had JC Nienhaber taking a #1 plate. You had Matty Wilson, who had, I think he was the only rider on the season across the entire country to go clean slate. Every race he entered, every race he won. A couple of riders had injury problems, but again, it was their first time out trying to run a team. Well, move forward into 2019, and you better wipe the sleep out of your eyes quickly, because there is a huge rider lineup. Check out this for a shopping list of a powerhouse squad. So hold your breath, here we go. The headliner, JC Nienhaber, who's obviously going to go out and try and defend his #1 plate at the GXCCs, where he took the heat and put the hurt on Kenny Gilbert of all people in his truly first year on the Big Banger. He's going to be going out there to defend that title, as well as going after the SA national title. So he's going to be one to watch. He's joined then in the off-road fraternity by a big fielding of OR2 riders. So OR2's Jason Fenter, who had his injury problems. He lines up once again on the 350. He'll be joined by one of the most improved riders on the gate from last year, and that's Brendan Rush, Bam Bam. He took the last whole shot of the season at the GXCCs, and he has been picked up by the MCA Holeshot squad. That's really cool. He's a multi-faceted rider. A bit of motocross, that's where he had his grounding, and then really found a good name for himself in the GXCCs. Then there's Hein van Niekerk. He was also on the OR2 lineup last year, but this year I see a big OR1 next to his name, which means he's moving up into the big dog category as well. So real strong fielding in OR1, really good fielding in OR2 as well. That's for the GXCCs and the off-roads. One of the big stories though as well was kind of like one of the worst kept secrets as well. The guy who has been kind of known now as the elder statesman of the OR3 category, and that's riding on a Yamaha for many years, getting looked after by D&H Engineering, came so strong last season after a pretty rough 2017 where he was dogged by injuries. And from the Clan McLeod, Darren McLeod, was a huge story in 2018 and deservedly got picked up by one of the big squads. So MCA Holeshot Husqvarna pick up the champion as he moves out of the 200cc class into what will be almost known as the 350 OR2 category. So that means these guys have got 3 big bangers, and probably the headliner there has got to be McLeod, as he finally makes the move up. He's wanted to do it for a few years now, and he gets picked up. So those are huge numbers. Then when you talk about the rest of the guys that are going to be in the queue throughout the rest of the categories, how's this for a story? Stefan van Deventer had no ride at the end of last year. He had no ride going forward into Roof. He got picked up lastminute.com by what was then known as the, I think it was the APC Holeshot squad, now moving forward into MCA Holeshot, and he is the headliner in the OR3 category. He is aching for a championship. He was real strong a couple of years ago in the high schools. Last year was his first year stepping out of the high schools into the bigger categories, and he had an up and down year by his own reckonings. I think just equipment choice maybe affected him, wasn't getting the support package that he wanted to. He's got a good support package here as well, and he's 2-time. So that means, I'll refer to 2-time a couple of times, or double duty. That means he is an OR3 championship threat for cross country and off-road for the national championship, as well as going and racing in national enduro and selected extreme events. So he's a very powerful player when it comes to the team lineup. And then, as if that wasn't enough, high school, which is one of the categories that's seen the most growth the last few years. Certainly last year was a question mark year because it was the first year that high school was not only an age group category, but it was a CC capped category. The first year that everyone had to race on the 125s. So no one really knew what was going to go down. Now, this year, there's a couple of riders that have moved up from the 85cc big wheelers. They've aged out, they've moved up into the 125s, and a couple of riders who'd already been in 125s for a couple of years and started to find their feet. So check this out for a high school lineup. The headliner, Matty Wilson, the winningest rider on the tour from last year in the 85cc senior big wheelers, untouchable on the GXCCs the whole way through the season, as well as EWXCs. He now moves up into the 125s. He threw a leg over his bike at the end of last year and showed some form. He has really grown. He's grown like a foot since the end of last year to this year as well. So he's grown into the 125. Perfect timing, well played to the family. They obviously stretched him out on the rack nicely, got him tall enough to really compete against some of the more established 125 players. He's joined in the MCA Holeshot Husqvarna squad by Devin Cocker. Cocker was a real surprise package at the end of last year on the 125 gate. Caught a lot of guys sleeping and took, I think it was the last 2 rounds in a row. Almost caused a problem in the championship for Low Pretorius and Storm Viljoen, who were really battling it out. So he's going to be a massive threat. He's also doing double duty. So a lot of these kids in the high schools, they can use a similar or same bike to race off-road and enduro because the 125s are that light. And then the third rider in the lineup is a rider that I've watched at some of the Farm Jam events in the past and a couple of selected EWXCs. Really battling on the privateer front, and so cool to see this kid get a pickup from the MCA Holeshot Husqvarna squad, and that's Ryan Sequeira. One of the riders that really battled, wasn't sure whether to get a 125 or a 150, but when he was racing and he didn't manage to get to all of the events last year or the year before, definitely a standout package. So that's 3 big swingers in the high school gate. They've got a good chance of locking out a couple of podiums. Watch out for that situation to unfold. Then staying with, yes, we're staying with the MCA lineup because it just goes on and on and on. It's huge. This is going to be a real hornet's nest coming through this year because this is a bigger squad than most of the factory teams out there. In fact, I'm going to put my neck out there and say I think it's the biggest squad lineup that I've seen in a few years. So, you know, you've got to go back a long time to see even the factory KTM squad run these kind of numbers and hit almost all of the categories. So on the smaller categories, one of the kids that was coming on really strong at the end of last year did have the support package through Holeshot last year, and good to see him stay with the program. He now moves and is going to be one of the key players to watch out for in the 85cc senior, that's the big wheel category. He's going to be out there racing on the GXCCs, probably a couple of the T-Bones, as well as the EWXCs and selected events when he can. Carl McKenzie, a very strong threat, a rider that just needed a little bit of self-belief on the podium more often than not, but I see him challenging for 1s and 2s at most of the events going forward into 2019, especially on the GXCC front. He likes to hang the cable, likes to go wide open. A little bit further down the road from him, a kid that's made the big move up from the 50cc's into the 65s, and that's Clarky. Little Brandon Clark, such a shining light last year, also almost had a clean sheet, had to miss a couple of events through school, and yeah, big threat. T-Bone, GXCC, EWXC, in fact already took the first win at the EWXCs this weekend as well. So great to see him make the big move up from the 50cc twist and goes. He is now clicking through the gearbox on a 65. Another rider on the junior ranks who continues is Johnny Luck. He had some problems at the end of last year with some late season injuries, but other than that he had a pretty squeaky clean 2018. He got picked up by Holeshot. He stays with Holeshot on the MCA squad, and Johnny should have locked in his style now as he goes out to try and be one of the main men or main kids in the junior 85 category. So as I said, a lot of these riders will cross over. They're talking about the majority of the riders will be in the mix for the GXCCs. Some of the riders will attack the national off-road and national enduros. Obviously the EWXCs and selected events along the way as well. When it comes to the EWXCs, the National Enduros and selected extreme events, the main man that they've gone for there, obviously not counting Stefan van Deventer, who we've already spoken about, who's going to be out there waving the flag, also Rob Garvey. Now Garvey got picked up by kind of like a semi-deal last year with Trax KTM. So he was teaming up with his brother for a while until his brother moved across to Raceworks KTM, where he's working and riding for them. And then he was also hanging with Justin Flemmer. So they all progressed very well together last year, and now the team is very much splintered. So as we've said, Flemmer stays with Trax KTM. Calvin Garvey goes across to Raceworks KTM. He actually rode the roof on a 500cc under that banner. And Rob Garvey, who is more than a podium threat. He's taken a lot of podiums at the low felt as well as EWXCs throughout 2018, and he's going to be their pro elite rider of choice. He's going to be the main man when it comes to rock hopping, and he's going to be the guy to watch out for, as well as Stefan van Deventer later in the year when we start talking about the Roof of Africa. I know it's early to start talking Roof of Africa, but it's always the pinnacle right at the end, and I promise I'm going this year. So Garvey, big one to watch out for there. Just came off a 4th place at this weekend's Pro Elite category for the EWXCs. How's that for a lineup? Well done, MCA Holeshot Husqvarna. I'm going to be keeping an eye on all these guys throughout this amazing 2019 season. So last week's show, I briefly looked at 1 or 2 of the teams. Really, I focused in this week on the MCA squad with them doing their big launch last week. But pretty much as I pushed play and launched the Hollywood Hills episode 1 last week for 2019, almost within the hour, Brian Kappa had started making noise on social media. So I'd spoken about the fact that Jade Goodsight had certainly made it known. There was no secret about the fact that he'd picked up a deal with Honda. Didn't know the details though until late part of Monday last week. It turns out that there's a deal that's been brokered with Mike Puzzi. So Puzzi Biker Warehouse have picked up obviously an agency for Honda, and with it they've decided to make that one of their bikes of choice. There's still a version of the team which is going to be handled by Wayne Farmer, and that's going to see them riding the Husqvarna brand. But then there's another side that's going to be running in the Honda colors. So Brian Kappa has brought his wealth of knowledge as well as all the contacts that he has through the BCR brand that he's developed. He's going to be relaunching the Big Red alongside Jade Goodsight, but also now under the Puzzi Biker Warehouse Honda banner, Big Bruce Viljoen. So I'm a big fan of Bruce. He's a good buddy of mine. He's taken back-to-back senior titles at GXCCs. He's aching for a national title. He definitely got kind of robbed last year with mechanicals and a head-on collision that really wasn't his fault. And cool to see him swing a leg over some new Big Reds. So he'll be racing in the senior category as always. He'll be on the big 450, and his practice and enduro bike is the 250. He's already podiumed this weekend at the EWXC, showing that it's a good fit for him. So that kind of finishes off the Big Red story that we were hinting at last week. And I don't think it's over. I think there's more riders that are going to come out the woodwork and take a deal on the Big Red, because the feedback that I'm hearing from a lot of people, I've been on the phone with Bruce, he said he's blown away by how easy these bikes are to ride. So very excited, and I think this may be 2019, the rebirth of Big Red Honda in South Africa. So let's talk about what's coming up this weekend. Well, for me, first working weekend of the season, so I'm proper pumped. Heading up to Middelburg. Pienaar Dam is the venue for the opening round of the 424 cross-country series. Brand new series, used to be running under the branding of Ride for Damien. Now a full-blown, not a charity ride anymore, full-blown race series. So they race across kind of the other side of Middelburg from where the Farm Jam guys do their thing. You guys want to know the off-ramp? If you're driving from Pretoria or Joburg, you go past the off-ramp that you would do for the Farm Jam guys, and it's the off-ramp that you would take to go to the mall, the big mall with the casino. Then you hook a right across the highway, and then it's just down there on the left-hand side. It's going to be signposted. They've already been uploading quite a lot of the pictures, so you can see some of the pictures of the track. It's the same layout of the last event from last year, so you can see it's a good mixture of pretty open gravel roads, hard pack and rock, and a little bit of mud and river crossings. The little bit of mud might be adjusted to quite a lot of mud. If you guys have been hanging with us here in Johannesburg or Pretoria, you'll have seen over the last couple of weeks it's been hammer time. Just been rain. It's been the same story up in Middelburg as far as I can see. The pictures that I got this weekend from the time attack that was held by the Farm Jam guys show that they didn't get hammered. There's definitely some river crossings and some puddles to deal with, but obviously by the Pienaar Dam it may look slightly different. So we've got some updated pictures coming through, so some nice ones to compare before, as in last year, to after, which is now. It's going to be very fun to go up there. It's a 35k loop for the bikes and a 35k loop for the quads. The quads will be opening up the track in the morning, as is kind of the trend nowadays. It's going to be a 9 o'clock start for those guys, as well as the juniors. And the junior loop for the kids, it's a very modest 8-kilometer loop, so it's going to be nice and fun. If your kids feel that maybe the 8-kilometer loop is too easy for them, they are allowed to enter into the kids and the senior race, and there will be kind of like dispensation for that. They're not going to get charged double, you know, if they haven't really got their money's worth. The guys are going to be very cool about that. John Horsforth was just on the phone with me. He says, please make it clear, if the kids want to ride the senior event after the junior event, they can. They just make sure that they have entered it as well. So it's going to be fun. First racing weekend for me up on the mic, and obviously I'll be reporting back on what goes down there. And then if you check out the rest of the calendar, it's the first round of the Lowveld Enduro Club as well. So I'm expecting you know, all the rock hoppers are going to be heading up the road a little bit further past where I am, but there's going to be a lot of trucks, vans and trailers and buckies heading from Pretoria and Joburg up to Mpumalanga this weekend. It's going to be absolutely huge. Another big one on Hollywood. I don't mean to be making them all this long. We're going to tighten them up back down to the regular 10-minute slots from here on out. There's just a lot to report on at the beginning of the year as it gets super exciting. But here we are, first full racing weekend of the year done, and I get to dust off the Audible chocolate on the mic for next weekend. Tune in and I will tell you exactly what went down. Cheers guys.